Vex 9 stared at the registration pad, his 4 yellow eyes blinking in rapid succession. The name glowing on the holographic display made absolutely no sense whatsoever. Maya Torres, he read aloud, his translator struggling with the alien syllables. Species, human, homeworld, Earth, previous hunt survivors. He paused, counted again, then slammed his chitinous claw against the console. 0 previous survivors. His assistant, a nervous Cytherian named Bolt, scuttled closer on 6 spindly legs. Sir, perhaps there's been some mistake in the database? Oh, there's been a mistake, all right, Vex 9 hissed, his mandibles clicking together in annoyance. Some Death Wish primate just signed up for the Zerion death hunt. Do you know what happened to the last 3 teams that attempted this particular hunt, Bolt? Bolt's antennae twitched nervously. They were turned into decorative paste? Decorative paste? Exactly! Vex 9's voice rose to a screech that made several nearby beings cover their auditory organs. The Zerion moon has claimed exactly 4,732 hunters over the past galactic standard year. The survival rate is... He did a quick calculation. Well, it's not a rate, is it? It's a big fat 0. The registration hall of the Galactic Hunt Federation buzzed with activity as various species prepared for their chosen death worlds. Towering Vorthan warriors sharpened their energy blades. Sleek Minari assassins calibrated their cloaking devices, and heavily armored Krug mercenaries tested their plasma cannons. All of them gave the small human female a wide berth as she sat calmly on a bench, reading what appeared to be an ancient paper book. Maya Torres looked utterly unremarkable by galactic standards. She stood barely 5.5 feet tall, with dark brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing nothing more than basic combat fatigues and sturdy boots. No advanced weaponry, no cybernetic enhancements, no protective armor plating. She might as well have been wearing a sign that said, "Free meal," in 17 different languages. Excuse me, Miss Torres? Vex 9 approached cautiously, his official Federation badge gleaming on his chest. I'm Administrator Vex 9. I need to discuss your application. Maya looked up from her book, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Let me guess. You think I'm crazy? Well, Vex 9's translator made several confused beeping sounds. Yes, actually. Completely, utterly, stark raving mad. The Zerion hunt has never had a single survivor. Not one. The ecosystem is specifically designed to kill anything that breathes, thinks, or exists in any measurable way. Sounds fun, Maya said, closing her book with a soft thud. When do we start? Bolt nearly fell off his legs. Fun? Did she just call certain death fun? Maya stood up, shouldering a simple backpack that looked like it had seen better decades. Look, Administrator Vex. 9, was it? I've read the briefings. Zerion moon. Hostile atmosphere. Temperature variations from -200 to +400 Celsius. Predators that make nightmares look cuddly. Plants that actively hunt their prey. And gravitational anomalies that can pancake you in seconds. Did I miss anything? The acidic rain that dissolves most known materials, Vex 9 offered weakly. Right, that too. Thanks. Maya's grin widened. You forgot to mention the part where it's supposedly impossible to survive more than 6 hours. Because it is impossible, Vex 9's voice cracked. The longest any hunter has lasted was 3 hours and 47 minutes. That was a fully augmented Cronin Battlelord with military-grade power armor. Maya nodded thoughtfully. What happened to him? Something called a shriek vine used him as a toothpick. Ouch. Maya winced sympathetically. Well, good thing I brought dental floss. The sound of Bolt choking on his own respiratory fluid echoed through the registration area. Several other hunters stopped their preparations to stare at the insane human who was apparently making jokes about certain death. Miss Torres, Vex 9 tried again, his voice taking on a pleading tone. Perhaps you don't understand the nature of these hunts? This isn't some primitive Earth safari. The Hunt Federation offers these challenges to the most elite warriors in the galaxy. Beings who have trained for centuries, who possess technology beyond your species' comprehension, who have survived battles that would reduce entire planets to cosmic dust. And they all died, Maya pointed out helpfully. Yes, they all died. So maybe elite warriors aren't what this particular challenge needs, Maya suggested, adjusting her backpack straps. Maybe it needs someone stupid enough to try a different approach. A massive Krug warrior, easily 8 feet tall and built like an armored tank, lumbered over to their conversation. His voice sounded like grinding metal when he spoke. Human female, you mock the sacred hunt traditions. I am Grok the Destroyer. I have conquered 12 Deathworlds. Your pathetic species barely crawls from their mudball planet. Maya looked up at the towering alien warrior, tilting her head to one side. Grok the Destroyer? Really? That's what you're going with? Did your parents not have any imagination? Or did you just decide that subtlety wasn't your strong suit? Grok's massive fists clenched, servo motors in his power armor whining ominously. You dare insult Grok's lineage? I'm not insulting anything, Maya replied calmly. I'm just wondering if there's a reason you chose such an on-the-nose name. I mean, what's next? Mike the Killer? Bob the Annihilator? Susan the Slightly Miffed? Several nearby hunters began making sounds that their translators identified as laughter, though it came out in various clicks, chirps, and electronic warbles. Grok's face, what little was visible beneath, his helmet, turned an alarming shade of purple. Enough! Vex 9 stepped between them before the situation could escalate further. Miss Torres, please report to Launch Bay 7. Your transport to Zerion will depart in 1 standard hour. He turned to Grok. And you, please stop intimidating the suicide candidates. It's bad for public relations. As Maya walked toward the launch bay, Bolt scuttled up beside Vex 9. Sir, shouldn't we stop her? I mean, sending an unarmed human to Zerion is essentially murder. Vex 9 watched Maya's retreating figure, noting the confident way she moved, as if she owned every step she took. Bolt, in my 300 years of administrating these hunts, I've learned something important about predicting outcomes. What's that, sir? I'm terrible at it. Vex 9 pulled up Maya's file again, scanning through the limited information available about human biology and psychology. Besides, the legal waivers are ironclad. If she wants to become Zerion monster food, that's her prerogative. Launch Bay 7 hummed with activity as technicians performed final checks on the transport vessel. Maya found herself sharing the waiting area with 5 other hunters, each one looking significantly more prepared for impending doom than she did. There was Slicks, a serpentine Nagarani assassin whose scales shifted color to match her surroundings. Her weapon collection alone probably cost more than most planets' annual budgets. Beside her sat 2 Minari twins, Keet and Veal, whose synchronized movements and matching cybernetic implants marked them as a bonded pair of elite hunters. A hulking Thaxian called Rumble spoke in low, gravelly tones to his companion, a sleek Zentorian female named Echo, whose silver skin gleamed under the bay's harsh lighting. All of them stared at Maya like she was some kind of fascinating alien specimen. "So," Slicks finally spoke, her forked tongue flicking out to taste the air. "Human, what's your strategy for surviving the first hour on Zerion?" Maya settled back in her chair, opening her book again. "Don't die." Keat and Vale exchanged glances before Keat spoke. "That's not really a strategy." "Sure it is," Maya replied without looking up from her pages. "It's simple, easy to remember, and completely foolproof. Can't argue with results." "What results?" Val asked. "You haven't survived anything yet." Maya flipped a page. "Exactly. Perfect track record so far." Rumble's deep voice rumbled through the bay. "Human displays either supreme confidence or complete madness. Rumble uncertain which proves more dangerous." "Por qué no los dos?" Maya muttered under her breath, then looked up at the confused expressions around her. "Sorry, Old Earth saying, roughly translates to, why not both?" Echo's silver features shifted into what might have been a smile. "You believe madness and confidence are the same thing?" "On a good day," Maya grinned, "though I prefer to think of it as optimistic stupidity." The more, transport ship's loading ramp began to lower with a hydraulic hiss that sounded remarkably like the dying breath of some enormous creature. The ship itself looked about as welcoming as a flying coffin, which, Maya reflected, was probably exactly what it was. "Attention, hunters," a mechanized voice announced over the bay's speakers. "Transport to Zerion will depart in 10 minutes. Please board now and prepare for what will likely be your final journey. The Hunt Federation wishes you luck, though statistical analysis suggests you won't need it for very long." "Well, that's cheerful," Maya commented, closing her book and standing up. "Nothing like a little positive thinking to start the day." As they boarded the transport, Slicks slithered up beside Maya. "I must ask, human, what's in the backpack? Surely you carry some form of advanced weaponry?" Maya patted her pack affectionately. "Oh, the usual survival gear. Water purification tablets, emergency rations, first aid supplies, rope, multi-tool, solar charger for my tablet." "Tablet?" Rumble's voice boomed from behind them. "For what purpose does human bring entertainment device to Deathworld?" "Books," Maya replied simply. "Got about 3,000 loaded on there. Figure if I'm going to die horribly, might as well catch up on my reading first." The transport's interior was as grim as its exterior, with crash seats designed to accommodate various alien physiologies and view screens showing rotating images of Zerion's hostile surface. Twisted forests of carnivorous plants, bubbling acid pools, and massive predators stalking across barren wastelands painted a picture of a world that really, truly, genuinely wanted everyone dead. "Zerion surface conditions," the ship's AI announced as they strapped in. "Current temperature, -47 Celsius. Weather, acidic sleet with a chance of death. Atmospheric pressure, slightly higher than inside a black hole. Recommended survival time, don't." Maya looked around at her fellow hunters, all of whom were checking their advanced equipment one final time. Plasma rifles, energy shields, environmental suits, combat stims, emergency beacons, portable shelters, millions of credits worth of cutting-edge military hardware. She pulled out her multi-tool and tested the bottle opener. "You know," she said conversationally as the transport lifted off, "I've been thinking about this whole Deathworld thing." "Enlighten us," Slicks hissed, though whether from amusement or exasperation was unclear. "Well, every hunter who's attempted Zerion has been some kind of super soldier, right? Elite training, advanced technology, centuries of experience, all the advantages you could possibly want. Yes, Vale said slowly, and they all died within hours. Exactly, Maya pointed at him like he'd just answered a quiz question correctly. So maybe the problem isn't that Zarion is impossible to survive. Maybe the problem is that everyone's been trying to fight it the wrong way. Keat leaned forward in his harness. What do you mean? Maya grinned, and for just a moment, there was something in her expression that made all the other hunters suddenly understand why humans had earned a reputation for being slightly unhinged. I mean, she said softly, that sometimes the best way to win a fight is to not fight at all. The transport shuddered as it entered Zarion's atmosphere, and through the view screens, the surface of the Deathworld rushed up to meet them like a very large, very angry predator. The landing was less of a controlled descent and more of a barely contained crash. Maya felt her teeth rattle as the transport bounced 3 times across Zarion's rocky surface, before finally skidding to a halt in what looked like a clearing surrounded by writhing vegetation. Landing successful, the ship's AI announced, with what sounded suspiciously like surprise. All passengers still technically alive. Probability of maintaining this status for more than 6 hours. Approaching absolute zero. Good luck, and thank you for choosing Certain Death Express. The exit ramp lowered with a grinding screech, revealing a landscape that looked like someone had taken a nightmare, fed it steroids, and then asked it to design a theme park. The air shimmered with heat despite the sub-zero temperature readings, and the acidic sleet mentioned in the weather report was already beginning to etch patterns into the transport's hull. Well, Maya said, shouldering her backpack, this looks cozy. Slicks was the first to slither down the ramp, her environmental suit gleaming as it automatically adjusted to the hostile conditions. Her scales shifted from silver to a mottled brown-green that matched the twisted landscape perfectly. Motion sensors detect 17 distinct life signs within 100 meters. All hostile, all very, very hungry. The Minari twins, Keat and Vial, activated their synchronized combat protocols, their matching plasma rifles humming to life. Atmospheric analysis complete, Keat reported. Air is breathable, but highly toxic. Skin contact with precipitation will cause cellular breakdown within minutes. Cheerful, Maya muttered, pulling a simple rain poncho from her pack. It was bright yellow plastic, the kind that cost about 3 credits at any orbital truck stop. She pulled it over her head and flipped up the hood. Rumble's massive form clanked down the ramp, his power armor systems running constant diagnostics. Rumble's sensors indicate seismic instability. Ground may collapse without warning. Also, something very large approaches from the east. Echo was already nearly invisible, her chameleon circuits blending her silver skin with the surrounding rocks. Thermal signatures suggest the approaching entity is approximately 30 meters long and extremely irritated about something. Maya checked her multi-tools compass function and nodded toward a gap in the writhing forest. Looks like there's a path over there. Anyone want to take bets on whether it leads somewhere useful or just to a more creative death? Human. Slicks's voice carried a note of genuine curiosity. Are you perhaps suffering from some form of species-specific battle madness? Your biometrics suggest you're actually enjoying this. Enjoying might be too strong a word, Maya replied, stepping off the ramp onto Zarion's surface. The acidic sleet immediately began hissing against her cheap poncho, but the plastic held. Let's go with finding it interesting. The ground beneath her feet was spongy and made unsettling squelching sounds with each step. What had looked like solid rock from the transport was actually some kind of organic material that pulsed rhythmically, like the surface of a gigantic heart. "Oh, that's not ominous at all," Maya commented cheerfully. A sound like a combination of breaking glass and screaming metal echoed from the eastern forest, followed by the distinctive thump of something massive moving their way at considerable speed. "Suggested course of action," Keats said, his weapon tracking the approaching sounds. "Immediate tactical withdrawal to defensible position." "Or," Maya suggested, continuing to walk calmly toward the forest path, "we could try not being where the big scary thing expects us to be." Val's cybernetic implants flashed in rapid calculation. Human strategy appears to be based on the assumption that the local predators follow predictable hunt patterns. "Not predictable," Maya called back over her shoulder. "Just logical. Big predators are usually big because they're successful hunters. Successful hunters develop habits. Habits can be exploited." The enormous creature burst from the tree line just as Maya had predicted, exactly where the transport had been sitting moments before. It looked like someone had taken a centipede, fed it a steady diet of steroids and bad intentions, then given it way too many teeth. Each of its dozens of legs ended in razor-sharp claws, and its segmented body was covered in armored plates that gleamed wetly in Zerion's dim light. It spent several seconds thoroughly demolishing the now empty transport, apparently confused by the lack of screaming occupants. "Huh," Maya observed from the relative safety of the forest path. "Bigger than I expected, but not exactly what you'd call a strategic thinker." Rumble's voice rumbled with what might have been admiration. "Human predicted creature's behavior with remarkable accuracy." "Elementary psychology," Maya replied, pushing aside a curtain of vines that immediately tried to wrap around her arm. She calmly unwound them and kept walking. Apex predators on Deathworlds probably don't encounter much in the way of clever prey. Everything that lands here either fights the ecosystem head-on or panics and runs in random directions. Both strategies end the same way. Echo materialized beside her, her camouflage dropping as she matched Maya's steady pace. "So, your strategy is to be unpredictable." "My strategy," Maya said, ducking under a branch that dripped something that was definitely not water, "is to be boring." Slix's forked tongue flicked out nervously. "Boring?" "Think about it," Maya continued, seemingly oblivious to the fact that the forest around them was literally trying to eat them. Thorns reached out like grasping fingers, flowers turned to track their movement, and something that looked like moss was definitely following them along the ground. Every hunter who's come to Zerion has been a warrior. They came here to fight, to prove themselves, to conquer a death world through superior firepower and tactics. A plant that looked like a cross between a Venus flytrap and a wood chipper suddenly lunged at Keat from overhead. His plasma rifle vaporized it instantly, filling the air with the smell of burned vegetation and ozone. "See?" Maya gestured at the smoking remains. "Threat, response, escalation. The whole ecosystem is geared toward that kind of interaction. But what happens when someone doesn't play the game according to the rules?" As if to demonstrate her point, a similar plant swayed toward Maya with obvious predatory intent. Instead of drawing a weapon or dodging, she simply reached into her pocket and pulled out a small spray bottle. "Bad plant," she said firmly, giving it a quick spritz with what appeared to be ordinary water. The carnivorous vegetation recoiled immediately, its leaves curling up as if in pain. "No eating tourists." The other hunters stared at her in amazement. "How?" Val's voice processing unit actually stuttered. "What kind of advanced chemical weapon?" Maya held up the spray bottle, which bore a faded label reading "Kitchen Cleaner, Lemon Fresh," in several human languages. Soap and water. Turns out that plants adapted to digest complex alien proteins don't handle basic detergents very well. Who knew? They continued through the forest, and Maya's unconventional approach began to demonstrate its effectiveness. When aggressive vines tried to entangle the group, she gently untangled them and redirected their growth. When acid-spitting flowers tracked their movement, she used a small mirror to redirect their attention to other targets. When the ground began to pulse faster, indicating some kind of underground predator, she tapped out a different rhythm with her walking stick until the hostile pulsing stopped. "This is impossible," Slicks hissed, though she was beginning to sound more fascinated than frightened. "You're treating a Deathworld ecosystem like a particularly unruly garden." "Same basic principles," Maya replied, carefully stepping around a puddle that was definitely not water. "Most aggressive behavior is just poor communication. The ecosystem isn't trying to be evil, it's trying to survive. Everything here has evolved to be maximally deadly, because that's what worked against the kinds of threats that usually show up." Echo's silver features shifted into an expression of dawning comprehension. "But humans are not the usual kind of threat." "Exactly," Maya grinned, pulling aside another curtain of potentially lethal vegetation. "We're persistence hunters. We don't rely on overwhelming force or superior speed. We just keep going until our prey gets tired of running." The path opened into a clearing dominated by what appeared to be a massive organic structure, like a building grown from living tissue rather than constructed. Pulsing veins ran along its walls, and openings that might have been doorways dilated and contracted rhythmically. "The Hive," Rumble identified, his databases providing tactical information. Previous hunters' recordings indicate this structure contains Xerion's apex predator. None who entered have ever emerged. Maya studied the building with professional interest. "Makes sense. Final boss territory. I'm guessing everyone who made it this far tried to fight their way through." Keats' sensors were going crazy, detecting dozens of hostile life signs within the structure. Thermal imaging suggests a complex internal ecosystem, multiple predator species, environmental hazards, and something very large in the central chamber. Something large and probably very cranky from being constantly bothered by uninvited guests, Maya nodded thoughtfully. She walked up to what appeared to be the main entrance and knocked politely on the fleshy wall. "Hello?" she called out. "Sorry to bother you, but would it be possible to have a quick chat? I promise, I'm not here to shoot anything or blow things up." The other hunters watched in stunned silence as the entrance dilated slowly, revealing a passage lined with what looked like teeth. "Well, that's either very good or spectacularly bad," Maya commented. She turned to the others. "Anyone want to wait here while I go introduce myself?" "Human." Slicks's voice carried a note of something that might have been respect. "You have either lost your mind completely or discovered something that 4,000 other hunters missed." "Por qué no los dos?" Maya replied with a grin, then walked calmly into the mouth of the hive. The interior was warm, humid, and pulsed with a rhythm that felt almost like a heartbeat. Bioluminescent patches provided dim lighting, and the walls seemed to breathe around them. Instead of the immediate attack they'd all expected, there was only waiting. Something was observing them from the shadows, but it felt more like curiosity than hostile intent. Maya continued forward, her footsteps echoing strangely in the organic corridors. Behind her, the other hunters followed with weapons ready, but not actively targeting anything. "You know what I think?" Maya said conversationally. apparently addressing the unseen presence. I think you're just as tired of this whole Deathworld routine as everyone else. 4,000 hunters in 1 year? That's got to be exhausting. A sound like distant wind chimes seemed to come from all directions at once. Right? Maya nodded as if she'd understood perfectly. Same routine every time. Big scary warriors show up, blast everything in sight. You defend your territory, they die horribly, and then you have to clean up the mess. No wonder you're cranky. The passage opened into a vast central chamber, and there, in the center, was Xerion's legendary apex predator. It was beautiful. Easily 40 meters long, it looked like someone had taken a dragon, a butterfly, and a crystal sculpture, and somehow merged them into something that should not have been able to exist. Its wings spread across the entire chamber, shimmering with patterns of light that shifted and changed like living art. Its eyes, dozens of them, were the deep blue-green of Earth's oceans, and it looked absolutely exhausted. "Oh, you poor thing," Maya said softly, approaching without fear. "How long have you been dealing with armed idiots trying to kill you?" The creature made a sound like singing crystals, low and mournful. Maya reached into her backpack and pulled out an emergency ration pack. "I know it's not much, but it's better than a plasma rifle to the face, right?" She tossed the ration pack gently toward the creature. One of its smaller appendages delicately picked it up and examined it with obvious curiosity. "Maya," Echo's voice was barely a whisper. "What are you doing?" "Making friends," Maya replied simply. She sat down cross-legged on the chamber floor, pulled out her tablet, and opened a book. "You don't mind if I read while you decide whether or not to eat me, do you?" "I'm at a really good part. The apex predator of Xerion, terror of the Deathworld, nightmare of 4,000 hunters, settled down like an enormous cat and watched with obvious fascination as the small human read her book aloud. 3 hours later, Vex 9 received a transmission that caused him to drop his morning stimulant all over his desk. "Hunt Control, this is Maya Torres. Mission status: alive and bored. The locals are actually pretty nice once you get to know them. Oh, and you might want to update your database. Xerion isn't a death world, it's a wildlife preserve. The apex predator is actually a conservationist who's been trying to keep tourists from destroying the ecosystem. We've worked out a deal. I'm going to help establish some proper visitor guidelines. And in exchange, she's going to show me the really cool parts of the moon that aren't covered in your boring old tactical reports." The transmission continued with what sounded like purring in the background. "Also, could you send down some better reading material? I'm almost through my entire library, and my new friend here is really into mystery novels. Apparently, she finds the concept of detective work fascinating. Who knew?" Vex 9 stared at the communication device as if it had grown additional limbs. Bolt scuttled over nervously. "Sir, should we prepare a rescue mission?" "Bolt," Vex 9 said slowly, "I think Maya Torres just revolutionized the entire concept of interspecies diplomacy. 6 months later, the Xerion Nature Preserve was the most popular destination in the galaxy, with Maya Torres serving as head guide and her friend, who had chosen the name Melody, as the chief conservationist. The Deathworld hunt was permanently discontinued, much to the relief of the Hunt Federation's insurance department. Maya's Guide to Extreme Tourism, How to Not Die Horribly While Making Friends, became a bestseller in 17 languages. And somewhere in the Galactic databases, her survival record was updated from 0 to "Stop asking. It's embarrassing."